Hi, this is Jordan Ramirez. Today's minisode is the drama Beyond the Hills from 2012, directed by Christian Mungiu, a deeply compelling realist drama dramatizing the events of a small monastery involved in the murder of an innocent woman who was thought to have been possessed. So, without further ado, you are listening to a film talk with Jordan Ramirez, Minisode. The film I am recommending for this minisode is the drama Beyond the Hills from 2012, directed by Christian Mungiu, starring Christina Flutter and Cosmina Stratton. Vocita, played by Cosmina Stratton, is reunited with her best friend from the orphanage, Alina, played by Christina Flutter. Vocita takes Alina to the monastery where she now resides and works as a nun. However, because Alina loves Vocita, she thought that she would love her back. Vocita, in return, refuses to leave the monastery because she has found her purpose in trusting God. Alina becomes rebellious, leading both the nuns and the priests of the monastery believing that something is wrong with her. Beyond the Hills is one of those films that lets you analyze it from an open-minded perspective. Watching this film from the outside of understanding the Orthodox Christian faith, I feel both fascinated at first and angered. There are some moments in the film where I feel tempted to just go straight for the jugular when it comes to the ignorance of the monastery not knowing about the outside world. For example, there is a scene that takes place early in the film during dinner time, when the priest speaks disparagingly about the fall of Western Europe, and he becomes dissatisfied with the fact that men marry men and women marry women, and that the city is littered with crime and drugs. Or the scene between Alina and Vocita in her cell, in which Alina asks her why she doesn't leave the monastery simply by referring to it as a rat hole, or the fact that Alina says that Vocita talks like an insane person who is not thinking rationally by stating that the priest is putting words in her mouth. Alina, for my money, is the only person in the film whom I completely sympathize with. She and her best friend Vocita were both raised in an orphanage, and Alina was trained in karate, which explains why she has stood by and protected her best friend since they were very young. She later moved to Germany as an immigrant to work as a waitress at a bar, and she previously lived with a foster family that proved to be problematic for Alina, who wanted to move out on her own. Not only are they best friends, but it is explained, not explicitly, that Alina is also in love with Vocita, and that she thought that Vocita would love her back. Originally, Alina wanted to go with Vocita to Germany, as they get a job working aboard a cruise as waitresses in order to survive. Vocita in the film, as I understand, is a character who is doing what is right for her and her friend, yet she is also guilty for the things that the monastery would later be guilty of, as she brings in Alina with her rebellious and outspoken personality traits going against the monastery's rules and ideas. While I understand that she had a calling by becoming a nun and calling the monastery her home and doing what is best for her friend, I cannot let the thought of Vocita accusing Alina of speaking profanities or talking in gibberish as being out of line, since she was responsible for what led to her best friend being gagged and tied up by the priests and the nuns and being incorrectly diagnosed as if she was possessed by a demonic spirit. The film was inspired by the two novels by Tatiana Niculescu-Bran, Deadly Confession and Judge's Book, about the Tanaku exorcism in 2005, that is detailed about a young woman named Marichia Konichi, who was allegedly to have been diagnosed with mental illness and was murdered during an exorcism ritual. The priest and the 4 nuns at the Orthodox monastery were sentenced and tried for murder. Mungiu started to write a draft of the script in early September 2012. He spent 9 months to get the story into a workable screenplay. Once the script was done, he and his crew ended up scouting for locations to be used for the film. One of the locations scouted for the film was Tanaku, where the incident took place. Originally, they were going to film at the actual monastery, but instead, he and the crew decided that they would not recreate the monastery or use the names of those involved with the incident. Mungiu made a promise that they would not make a dramatized film about the incident. However, they would retain several details and elements found in the 2 books, the newspaper article, and other information useful for the film. Other ideas that swirl when scouting for locations were looking for abandoned monasteries that became unusable, or an old film set that would be useful to film in. In the end, they ended up building the monastery themselves. Instead of finding a monastery, they needed to find a hill that had no buildings or utility poles around, and that a village would be visible in the valley below. One location that stood out was Campina, that was 60 miles from Bucharest. To have an idea of what the set would look like, Mungyu used modeling clay to create what the monastery would look like for his set designers. Detailed sketches and drawings were made of what the monastery would look like, and using pictures from a real monastery as reference points of what it should look like on the set. For the monastery set, they created a paved road that would serve as the entrance, then they put cables that were underground so they wouldn't be visible during filming. They marked the spot for where the set would be and started construction. However, they faced a tight deadline before filming must start. They encountered numerous problems. The ground wasn't flat, and leveling the site would be costly and time-consuming. The issues would be later resolved once they got to work by building a wooden structure for the church and making the exterior look like it's unfinished, like the real church, as well as the interior of the monastery. When casting the film, Mungyu had only one actor in mind as he was writing the script, Valeru Andriota, who would play the role of the priest. Mungyu contacted Andriota in April 2011 before he was making the film. He asked him if he would let his beard grow since they had last spoken. He had, but he shaved it off. He told him to grow it back again, but told him that he wasn't sure about making the film. He responded, "Okay." Then, as the days went by, Mungyu's responsibility began to grow, and he decided to make the film. Andriota got the part. For the role of Alina, the director and crew saw a picture of Christina Fluter on the website for a local theater in Cebu. They were convinced that she was the right person for the part. Fluter was given an audition for the part, and she got it. Cosmina Stratton met the casting director, and she auditioned for the part and got it. To prepare for the film, they were running short on time. The director and the crew decided to bring the actors to the unfinished set to start their rehearsals. After several rehearsals, the actors became familiar with the set and treated it as a real location, as well as the furniture and set pieces for the key scenes that will later be filmed. Luckily, the rehearsals helped both the cast and crew encounter practical problems that they will face that can be corrected and addressed once filming starts. Once filming started, Mungyu knew that he wanted to film in long takes that would be filmed in one continuous shot uninterrupted. Mungyu knew that it would be difficult, so he had to make sure it would be choreographed really well, and the technical preparations needed during the filming stage, such as camera placement, which lens to use, which angles work best, and where the actor should be in place of the camera. The filming lasted from November 2011 to February 2012. It premiered at the 2012 Cannes Film Festival on May 19th. It won the awards for Best Screenplay and Best Actress for Christina Fluter and Cosmina Stratton. It was selected as the Romanian entry for the Best Foreign Language Academy Award for the 85th Oscars in the January shortlist. It premiered in the United States on March 8, 2013, after it was acquired by Sundance Selects as its distributor. The critical response to the film was mixed between audiences and critics. The film, however, managed to make it on the list of the best films of 2012 for Sight and Sound Film Magazine at number 8. The film even managed to make it on John Waters' Top 10 Favorite Films list in 2013 at number 7. One thing that I will take away from this film is that even though I have vented my own opinion of what the Orthodox sect had done to this poor woman whom I have sympathized with in the film, it manages to be complex and interwoven in presenting two different perspectives, the outsider of the sect and those who are inside it. It is a film that is more open-minded and analytical without exploiting the situation. This is what I appreciate in understanding Mungyu's work. Hearing from the director's own words in an interview that he gave with Criterion, I can understand why his narrative feels so complex. I also have to applaud the cinematography by Oleg Mutu and Mungyu's vision for creating a documentary realistic drama that managed to showcase the emotional connection of the action between the camera movements and angles and the characters in the story up close. I would highly recommend this film to see what one's reaction to the film would be, whether you would sympathize with the Orthodox Church's beliefs and actions or not. So, I highly recommend this film for that reason. On the next episode of Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez, it's The Deep Blue Sea from 2011, directed by Terrence Davies, starring Rachel Weisz and Tom Hiddleston, airing this Friday at 4 p.m. on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Radio Public. This has been a Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez Minisode. Tune into the Minisodes every Monday at 12 p.m. on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Radio Public. If you want to be a guest on my special interactive video podcast, make sure to send your recommendation on the Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez Facebook page or send your audition video on YouTube or Instagram Shorts. The video podcast will be on Spotify. If you are on Spotify, make sure to like and subscribe to keep this show going, and make sure to recommend your friends and family members to tune into this podcast. I also have my own YouTube channel, Film Talk with Jordan Ramirez, where you can watch my latest video podcast and make sure to like and subscribe. And until then, I'll see you at the movies.